track. What do you think?
Perfect.
Oh my god, I can't believe it. Hello, I'm Alec Torelli, and welcome to the very first episode of Live Like a Pro. Today's question comes from George in Illinois, who asks, what is the biggest mistake that poker players make? First, I have a confession, and it's that I'm a bit of a hypocrite here because I'm guilty of this mistake as well. Now, it's actually so deeply rooted in the very essence of poker, there's not just the amateurs who slip up, it's the pros too. Now, I'll go so far as to say that the majority of the time that anyone makes a mistake at the poker table, it's because they're doing this one thing wrong. So what is it? Play fewer hands. That's it. That doesn't just mean pre-flop. It means in all positions, in all situations, always. Here's a few examples of ways the people play too many hands. Pre-flop. Limping, raising, calling raises, re-raising. Post-flop. Betting, calling bets, raising, or check raising. Starting to notice a pattern here? They're all forms of aggression. Translation, playing too many hands means putting too much money in the pot. At all times, always. Now let's be practical. So what can you do to know if you're playing too many hands? And how can you correct it? Here's 3 tips. Tip number 1, keep track. Writing down the hands we play keeps us accountable. What I recommend is taking a pen and paper to literally every session you play. And every time you play a hand, mark 1 tally. At the end of the session, multiply the hours you played by 25 hands an hour. If the percentage of hands you're playing isn't 10% or less, chances are you're doing something wrong. Now, remember, this is just a general guideline. So the better you are relative to your opponents, or the lower the rake is, the more hands you can play profitably. Number 2, practice folding. What? I know it sounds weird, but hear me out. Most of us, myself included, have a fear of folding. What if they show us a bluff? If you'll notice a tendency in your game, it's always easier to call with the worst hand than it is to fold the best one. Because we're not left wondering at the end of the night what our opponents had. Try this. Your next session, limit yourself to the following hands. 9-9 or better, ace-queen suited, and ace-king. If you have a loose image, even better. Your opponents will never see it coming. Focusing on pre-flop is 80% of the battle. By tightening your pre-flop play, you leave yourself much less possibility to make mistakes or put too much money in the pot after the flop. This exercise is really valuable when you're on a downswing, you're in a tough game, or you just want to lock up that win. 3, have a plan. Before every decision you make sure you've thought in your head what you're going to do in the most likely future situation. Let's say your opponent bets the flop and you have a pair. Before you call that flop bet, you need to know, what am I going to do if that flush card comes? In this way, you're much less likely to pull some crazy fancy play syndrome that's going to leave you with huge regret and a lot less money. Of course, you're free to change your mind if you get some big read later in the hand. Always remember, your gut instinct is usually right, so go with that.